Do all of you know? If you have forgotten, let me remind you that I stopped my previous video at a place where Cassius gives a very practical suggestion to Brutus to kill Antony along with Caesar. Do you remember now? Good. Now let's continue how Brutus rejects Cassius's suggestion of killing Antony along with Caesar. Brutus goes against Cassius's suggestion by giving his own reasons, and I'll read out the entire speech of Brutus. You carefully follow every line, especially 9th and 10th standard ICSE students. Please follow every line very carefully. Keep your textbooks open. Come to Brutus's speech in Act 2, Scene 1. The speech begins with, "Our course will seem too bloody Caius Cassius." Have you got that line? Okay then. Let's read out. You kindly follow the entire speech of Brutus to Cassius and other conspirators. After reading out the speech, I will start explaining each and every line in a way I could explain. Brutus says, "Our course will seem too bloody Caius Cassius to cut the head off and then hack the limbs, like wrath in death and envy afterwards. For Antony is but a limb of Caesar. Let us be sacrificers, but not butchers, Caius. We all stand up against the spirit of Caesar, and in the spirit of men there is no blood. Oh, that we then could convey Caesar's spirit and not dismember Caesar. But alas, Caesar must bleed for it. And gentle friends, let us kill him boldly, but not wrathfully. Let us carve him as a dish fit for the gods, not hew him as a carcass fit for hounds. And let our hearts, as subtle masters do, stir up their servants to an act of rage, and after seem to chide them. This shall make our purpose necessary and not envious. While so appearing to the common eyes, we shall be called perjurers, not murderers. And for Mark Antony, think not of him, for he can do no more than Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is off." Then Cassius says, "Yet I fear him, for in the engrafted love he bears to Caesar." Then Brutus says, "Alas, good Cassius, do not think of him. If he so loves Caesar, all that he can do is to himself. Take thought and die for Caesar. That were much he should, for he is given to sports, to wildness, and to much company." Look at how easily Brutus rejects Cassius' suggestion that they should just not kill Caesar, but also Antony. Look how Brutus rejects Cassius' suggestion. Brutus says, "Our course will seem too bloody Caius Cassius." What is that course? Our action. Our action of not only killing Caesar, but also Antony along with Caesar. If I follow, oh my dear Cassius, if I follow your suggestion, and if we all of us kill Antony also along with Caesar, that course of action will look too bloody. It will look too bloody means too cruel to kill Antony also along with Caesar. Look at this. He says, "Our course will seem too bloody Caius Cassius to cut the head off and then hack the limbs." Brutus is speaking of the head and the limbs. Cutting the head off means assassinating Caesar. Hacking means cutting. Cutting the limbs of Caesar means killing Antony. Because Brutus, in theory, not in practical, in theory, Brutus compares Antony to a limb of Caesar, to an arm of Caesar, to a leg of Caesar, to an organ of Caesar. And he says, we are cutting off the head of Caesar. Why the hell are you afraid of his limb? Would the limb be active if the head is gone? When the head is cut off, the limb would also become lifeless. And you are afraid of the limb, that is Antony. When Caesar is dead, Antony becomes useless as the limb of Caesar after Caesar's head is gone. What can the arm or the leg of a dead man do? It cannot do any danger to us. In spite of knowing this, after killing Caesar, after cutting off Caesar's head, if we also cut off Caesar's limbs, don't we look like butchers? We should look like sacrificers, Brutus says. We are here not to kill Caesar, not to end Caesar. We are here to end Caesar's ambition. Since God hasn't given us the opportunity to end a man's ambition without killing him, God hasn't given us that opportunity. So we have to kill Caesar to kill his ambition. And if we kill Antony also along with Caesar, it is like behaving like a butcher. What does a butcher do? He first kills the animal and then hacks its limbs. And fix those limbs to those pegs and starts selling them to the public. Are we butchers? We are not here as butchers. We are here as sacrificers, because we are sacrificing Caesar for the good of our country, Rome. Let us just kill Caesar. Let us not worry about Antony. He says, what can Antony do? Antony is just but an arm of Caesar. What can this arm do any danger to us when the head is off? When the head is cut off, is there any danger from the arm which becomes lifeless? Antony also would be lifeless after the death of Caesar, he says. By saying so, Brutus rejects Cassius's fantastic, fabulous, practical suggestion that they should kill Antony also along with Caesar. Brutus is a fool, dear friends. Look at this. Brutus says, I read out the speech of Brutus from the beginning. He says, our cause will seem too bloody. We will appear too cruel, Caius Cassius, to cut the head off and then hack the limbs. He says, like wrath in death and envy afterwards. Supposing a person is jealous of some other person, what he would do is, a jealousy person, he would kill his enemy to show his anger. What is wrath? Anger. Extreme anger is called wrath. We show our extreme anger by killing a person. And we would be showing our jealousy. Envy means jealousy, by cutting off his limbs after that person is dead. After the person is dead, would that dead person know which part of his body is cut off? Or which part of the body you are cutting off? Does he know when he's dead and gone? Look at this. So he says Antony would be as useless, as inactive, as dead, as the dead limb of Caesar after Caesar's head is cut off. That means after Caesar is assassinated, Antony becomes as inactive as the arm or the limb of Caesar after Caesar's death. It's like wrath in death and envy afterwards. Look at the next line. He says, because Antony is but a limb of Caesar. Who is Antony according to Brutus? Antony is a separate individual with his own capacity to think and plan. But to Brutus, Antony is just a limb of Caesar. What is a limb? It could be an arm, it could be a leg, it could be any organ of Brutus. Any organ of Caesar. Our course will seem too bloody Caius Cassius to cut the head off and then hack the limbs like wrath in death and envy afterwards. For Antony is but a limb of Caesar. Let us be sacrificers but not butchers, Caius Cassius. He says, what does he mean by being sacrificers? Brutus means assassinating only Caesar. He means, when he says they should not be butchers, he means that they should not, if they kill Antony also with Caesar, they will be called butchers. It is like butchery. Do you understand? Do you follow my words, dear friends? Look at this. He says, let us be sacrificers. Let us limit ourselves to assassinating Caesar, but not butchers. Let us not kill Antony also along with Caesar. Because he says, we have nothing against Antony. Antony is not a king. Antony is not a dictator. We have nothing against Antony. Why the hell should we kill Antony unnecessarily? He says, we all stand up against the spirit of Caesar. We are not against the body of Caesar. We are not against the physical body of Caesar. We are all against the spirit of Caesar, that ambitious spirit, that selfish spirit of Caesar. The spirit of Caesar which would make him into a dictator after he is crowned a king. We all stand up. Our fight is against the spirit of Caesar and not against the physical body of Caesar, is what Brutus's argument is, dear friends. He says, we all stand up against the spirit of Caesar, and in the spirit of men, there is no blood. Look at his argument. In the spirit of man, in the selfish nature of man, there is no blood. There is blood only in the physical body of man, not in his mind, not in his spirit. But what to do? We have to kill Caesar because God hasn't given us the permission. God hasn't given us the opportunity to take this selfish spirit of Caesar outside and end it. Since we can't do it, since we can't separate Caesar's ambitious spirit from Caesar, since we can't do it, we have to assassinate Caesar to end Caesar's ambition. Do you understand my argument? Thank you. We all stand up against the spirit of Caesar, and in the spirit of men, there is no blood. Look at the next line. It is regret. Brutus is regretting. Brutus is feeling sorry that God hasn't given them this opportunity of separating man's selfishness from man and ending it. After separating it from man, he says, oh, if God had given us the opportunity, oh, that we then could come. Look at this, he says, oh, that we then could come by Caesar's spirit and not dismember Caesar. What is dismembering? Killing Caesar. Dismembering means taking out Caesar's life from his body. It's like dismantling, an easy chair, a comfy chair, dismantling a TV, dismantling a computer. He says they have to dismember Caesar because God hasn't given them that opportunity to separate Caesar's selfishness from his physical body and end it. Oh, that we then could come by Caesar's spirit and not dismember Caesar. But alas, Caesar must bleed for it. That word alas expresses Brutus's sense of disappointment that God hasn't given them that opportunity to end only Caesar's selfish spirit without killing him. Since God hasn't given it, Caesar must bleed for it. Hence, we have to spill the blood of Caesar to end the spirit of Caesar. But alas, Caesar must bleed for it. Then he says, and gentle friends. He calls the conspirators gentle friends, which is ironically not so. And gentle friends, let us be gentle, because let us kill him boldly and not wrathfully. Look at the adverbs, boldly and wrathfully. If we kill Caesar only, we would be sacrificing Caesar for the good of our country. That's why he says, let us kill him boldly. That means let us limit ourselves only to assassinating Caesar. Let us not kill him wrathfully. He uses the next adverb. Let us not kill him wrathfully. We would look wrathful if we kill Antony also along with Caesar. That's why he says, let us not be wrathful. Let us be bold. Let us just kill Caesar and leave Antony. This is his argument. Let's kill him boldly, but not wrathfully. Let us carve him as a dish fit for the gods. Because in the previous lines he had said, he had asked the conspirators, all the other conspirators, to be sacrificers and not butchers. If we are to be called sacrificers, we should assassinate only Caesar. Only then gods would be happy, because we are sacrificing Caesar for the good of our country. So let us carve Caesar. Let us assassinate Caesar. Let us give a shape to Caesar's body as a food which would be tasted only by the gods. Let Caesar be a food fit to be tasted by gods. That means let us just kill Caesar. If we hack his limbs also, that means if we kill Antony also, we would appear like butchers. And his hacked body, his broken body, would never be touched by gods. His body parts would be eaten away by hounds, by these hunting dogs. That means his argument is they should not kill Antony. They should just limit ourselves to killing or assassinating Caesar. Look at this, he says, let us carve him as a dish, as a food fit for the gods. And not hew him as a corpse, as a carcass fit for the hounds. Let us not hew him. Let us not cut him to pieces, fit to be eaten up by hounds, the hunting dogs. Let us not cut him to pieces and make him look like a carcass. Carcass is a dismantled, cut off body of a person, fit to be eaten up by the hunting dogs and not by gods. That means that he just wants to assassinate Caesar and not Antony also along with Caesar. Brutus is not a man to follow whatever Cassius says, Brutus is a man who wants others to follow him. He is not a man to follow others. And then he says, and let our hearts, as subtle masters do, stir up their servants to an act of rage and after seem to chide them. Let our hearts be like the intelligent masters. What do these clever masters do? They instigate their servants to do an act of revenge, to an act of a bloody act, and then they appear to be scolding them. In the same way, let us assassinate Caesar and let us blame ourselves for killing Caesar for the sake of the country, and people then would call us sacrificers and not, butchers and murderers, he says. This shall make our purpose necessary and not envious. What is our purpose? Assassinating Caesar. If we assassinate only Caesar, then our purpose will look necessary and not envious. What is envious? Jealous. If we kill Antony also along with Caesar, our purpose would look jealous. And people would blame us as murderers, not as perjurers, not as sacrificers, not as the protectors of the country Rome. Look at this, he says, this shall make our purpose necessary and not envious, which so appearing to the common eyes. And we will, if we kill Antony also, if we kill only Caesar, to the common eyes, to the eyes of the common man, we would appear as perjurers, protectors of the country and not as murderers. And we would appear as murderers if we kill Antony also along with Caesar. And so appearing to the common eyes, we shall be called perjurers. What is the meaning of perjurers? People who have saved their country. People who have purged, cleared their country of bad things like Caesar. A purger is one who reforms the society. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is called a purger because he sacrificed his life, Babasaheb Ambedkar, to reform the society, So, such great people are called purgers. We shall be called purgers, not murderers. And for Mark Antony, think not of him. Why do you think of Mark Antony? Why do you think that there would be danger from Mark Antony? Don't think of Mark Antony. Mark Antony is just an arm of Caesar. He goes to the extent of ignoring Antony completely, Brutus. Because Brutus wants others to follow him. He is not a man to follow others. And for Mark Antony, think not of him. For look at his argument, foolish argument. He says, for Mark Antony can do no more than Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is off. Antony is like Caesar's arm. Antony can do no more harm like that of Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is gone. Have you understood this argument? Look at this. He says, for he can do no more harm than Caesar's arm when Caesar's head is off. But still Cassius is worried. Cassius says, yet I fear him. But somewhere down at the bottom of his heart, Cassius is scared of Antony's hidden talent. Hence Cassius says, yet I fear him. For in the engrafted love he bears to Caesar, because he has deep-rooted love for Caesar. And if we assassinate Caesar, wouldn't Antony plan to take revenge on us for that deep-rooted love he has for Caesar? That's why Cassius is afraid of Antony. But Brutus says, alas, good Antony, alas, good Cassius, do not think of him. If at all he loves Caesar, all he can do is to himself, not to us. If at all he can do a good thing or a bad thing, he would do it to himself and not to us. He would at least at the most take thought. He would feel sorrowful for Caesar's death, and he would also die along with Caesar. After all, what he would do is he would commit suicide, Antony. But there would not be any danger from him to us. And that were much he should. That were much he should. He would do only that. He would take thought, he would be sorrowful and kill himself after Caesar's death. Because he is given to sports, to wildness. He drinks a lot and he loves company. He loves sports. He drinks too much. And we don't need to worry about Antony. So let us not kill Antony also along with Caesar, he says. Then Trebonius says, there is no fear in him, let him not die. Trebonius blindly supports Brutus because they want Brutus's leadership. Trebonius says, there is no fear in him, let him not die, for he will live and laugh at this hereafter. He will live, laugh at this means he will live and take life as it is. Because there is a statement that life has to go on in spite of tragic events. And what after all Antony could do is, he would take this naturally and he would live. He would survive after Caesar's death. And there wouldn't be any danger from Antony. Let us leave him, says Trebonius. And this is what, Trebonius says. And let us stop this video at this juncture. And then in my next video, let us see what happens. Because Cassius comes out with a doubt whether Caesar would come to the Senate. He has his own doubts, and we'll talk about his doubts in my next video. And when all these people come there, the time is 3 o'clock early in the morning. And so they have to depart. And they have to meet in the Senate house and they have to go to Caesar's house and take him to the Senate. And all these things will be discussed in my next video. Till then, take care. Go through these lines once again. And if you have any doubts, please write them in the comment box. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.